All right, Steelers Nation, let's dive right into today's exclusive report. But before we get started, do me a quick favor. Smash that like button if you want to keep getting the best Pittsburgh Steelers updates every single day. Our team here is always working to bring you closer to the action, and with your support, we'll keep growing this amazing community of black and gold fans. So go ahead, hit that like, and let's talk about some big news coming out of Pittsburgh. The Steelers have gotten off to a rocky start in 2025. Sitting at 1-1 after 2 weeks, it's fair to say this hasn't been the sharp, dominant start that fans were hoping for. The defense, which was supposed to be the identity of this team, has looked out of sync, beaten down, and far from the unit we've been promised. But here's the good news. In Steelers Nation, you're going to love hearing this. After the chaos of Week 2 against the Seattle Seahawks, where key defenders dropped like flies, Pittsburgh finally got a piece of positive news regarding one of their most important players, Alex Highsmith. Initially, fans feared the worst when Highsmith left the game with a high ankle sprain. We all know how tricky those injuries can be. High ankle sprains usually mean 4 to 6 weeks on the shelf, and when the reports first came in, many believed there was a real chance Highsmith could land on injured reserve. If that had happened, he would have been out a minimum of 4 games. For a defense already missing Joey Porter Jr. and Deshaun Elliott, that would have been catastrophic. Instead, NFL insider Ian Rappaport dropped the update every Steelers fan was hoping for. Highsmith's injury is not as bad as initially feared. He will not be placed on IR, which means he should only miss a game or 2 at most. This is massive news because Highsmith has quietly been one of the few bright spots on an otherwise struggling defense. His ability to generate pressure, defend the edge in the run game, and create momentum-shifting plays makes him one of the true tone setters on this roster. Now let's be clear. The defense has been disappointing through 2 games. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. Seattle put up nearly 400 yards of offense last week, and even in the Week 1 win, the defense looks shaky. Still, Highsmith has been one of the consistent forces keeping things from completely unraveling. That's why keeping him available long-term is such a crucial boost for this team. So what does this mean for the Steelers' immediate future? The team is preparing for a Week 3 matchup against the New England Patriots on the road, followed by a massive Week 4 international showdown against the Minnesota Vikings in Ireland. Then comes a much-needed bye week in Week 5 before AFC North play kicks off against the Cleveland Browns in Week 6. Realistically, this timeline lines up perfectly for Highsmith. If he does miss time, it's most likely Week 3 and maybe Week 4 at the latest. That would mean a fully rested Highsmith could be back in the lineup just in time to face the Browns, one of the biggest games of the first half of the season. The Steelers cannot afford to slip up before then. With the second half of the 2025 schedule looking brutal, stacking wins early is non-negotiable. Dropping games to New England or Minnesota, especially with those opponents both looking beatable, would put the Steelers behind the curve in the AFC playoff race. Of course, the Highsmith news is only one piece of the puzzle. This defense as a whole needs a complete turnaround. Injuries are part of football, but what's happening in Pittsburgh is also about execution, effort, and coaching. Through 2 weeks, the defense has looked confused in coverage, inconsistent in tackling, and far too easy to scheme against. That's not what you expect from a Mike Tomlin-led team, especially when the franchise has invested so heavily in players like T.J. Watt, Patrick Queen, and Minkah Fitzpatrick before his departure. The positive spin is this. The Steelers have time. They're 1-1, not 0-2. They've shown flashes, and now with Highsmith's prognosis being less severe, they have one of their defensive leaders coming sooner than later. But make no mistake, if this defense continues to play like it has so far, this team won't stand a chance in the AFC. Adding another wrinkle to this story is Mike Tomlin himself. The head coach, famous for his mantra of "we don't live in our fears," made a decision in Week 2 that contradicted that very message. In a tie game against Seattle, facing a critical 4th and short near midfield, Tomlin decided to punt. His reasoning? He wanted to protect the defense that was already depleted by injuries and keep the Seahawks on a long field. On paper, that explanation makes sense, but when you think about it, the move actually hurt the defense more than it helped. If your defense is gassed and beaten down, the best way to protect them is to keep them off the field. Trust your offense to get 1 yard and keep the drive alive. Instead, Tomlin played it safe, something he always preaches against, and the game quickly spiraled out of control from there. This has become a talking point around the city, and rightfully so. Fans want to see the Steelers practice what they preach. If the philosophy is aggression, toughness, and not living in fear, then that needs to be reflected in-game, especially in moments that can swing momentum. That loss exposed issues across the board, but the biggest story coming out of the game is the backlash directed at star linebacker T.J. Watt. Yes, the same T.J. Watt who just signed a 3-year, $123 million contract extension, making him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. The same Watt who has been the face of this defense for years, the relentless pass rusher who has terrorized quarterbacks since entering the league. But here we are, 2 weeks into the 2025 season, and Watt has yet to record a sack. Not only that, but his drought stretches back into last season. The last time Watt recorded a sack was Week 15 of 2024 in a loss to the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. That's now 6 straight games without the type of game-changing play that fans have come to expect from number 90. Steelers fans are some of the most passionate in football, and when they see one of their biggest stars underperforming, they let it be known. And in this case, social media has not been kind to Watt. One fan wrote, $41 million a season for T.J. Watt and he doesn't have a sack in his last 6 games? I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. Another fan added, fans need to give the $41 million man Cam treatment. He whined about his contract, got paid, and now he's ghosting in production. Unacceptable. Others went even further, with one fan comparing him unfavorably to Brown star Myles Garrett. We've tried to tell you for years he's nowhere near Myles Garrett. Some even question whether the extension should have ever happened. Shouldn't have been extended and should have been traded for draft picks. I said it before the extension, and I'll say it again. And then there's the blunt criticism. Yeah, he's fallen off. Now let's pump the brakes for a moment. This is T.J. Watt we're talking about. A 7-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time All-Pro, the 2021 NFL Defensive Player of the Year, a man who has led the league in sacks 3 separate times. Since entering the NFL in 2017, he has been one of the most disruptive forces in football. Has he had a rough stretch? Absolutely. Is he still one of the most feared defenders in the game? Without a doubt. Players go through slumps. Injuries pile up. Opposing offenses adjust. But to suggest that Watt has suddenly lost it or that he's not worth the extension feels like an overreaction. At the same time, this is the reality of being one of the highest paid players in football. When you're making $41 million a season, the expectations are sky high. Fans expect dominance, not just production. They expect game-changing plays, especially in moments when the team needs them the most. And in Week 2, with the defense struggling to stop Seattle, Watt didn't deliver the type of performance that changes the outcome. That's why the backlash feels so intense. Here's the thing. Watt isn't just another player. He is the Steelers' defense. His energy, his motor, and his ability to wreck a game plan have defined this unit for years. When Watt is at his best, the Steelers' defense looks elite. When he's quiet, the entire defense seems to lose its edge. That's why these next few weeks are critical. The Steelers are preparing to face the New England Patriots in Week 3 on the road, followed by a trip to Ireland to play the Minnesota Vikings in Week 4. Then comes a bye week before diving into AFC North play. If ever there was a moment for Watt to silence the critics and remind everyone why he's worth every penny, it's right now. So what's going on with Watt? There are a few possibilities. Offensive adjustments. Opposing teams are scheming him out of plays. Watt draws constant double teams and chip blocks, and without consistent help from the other pass rushers, offenses can afford to throw extra attention his way. Lingering wear and tear. Watt is now 30 years old, and while that's not ancient by NFL standards, it's fair to wonder if nagging injuries have slowed his explosiveness. Team struggles. The Steelers' defense as a whole has been poor. When coverage breaks down and quarterbacks are getting the ball out quickly, even the best pass rushers can't make an impact. But make no mistake, T.J. Watt's presence still changes the game. Even without sacks, his pressure influences plays, forces hurried throws, and sets up opportunities for his teammates. The box score doesn't always tell the full story. What matters now is how Watt responds. The criticism isn't going away, not until he breaks out of this slump. And the only way to silence the noise is to get back to doing what he does best, making game-changing plays. The Patriots' offensive line is vulnerable. Their offense isn't explosive. This Week 3 matchup is tailor-made for Watt to reintroduce himself as the league's most feared pass rusher. A big game in New England could flip the narrative and remind everyone that number 90 is still very much that guy. And let's be honest, Steeler Nation, if T.J. Watt gets rolling again, the entire defense could follow. The standard in Pittsburgh has always been defense first, and Watt is the heartbeat of that identity. Steeler Nation, the last week has been a roller coaster. From losing a key starter in Alex Highsmith to fearing the worst to finally getting the uplifting news that his injury won't be season-altering, it's been a wild ride. And now the focus shifts to Week 3 against New England. This defense has no more excuses. Yes, they're banged up. Yes, some of the depth is being tested earlier than anyone expected. But this is the Pittsburgh Steelers, a franchise built on defensive dominance and resilience. The standard is the standard. We've all heard Tomlin say it a million times. Now it's time for this group to live up to it. The offense showed in Week 1 that it can deliver when needed. But if this team is going to reach its potential, it has to be the defense that sets the tone. With Highsmith's return on the horizon, there's reason for optimism. But the adjustments have to come fast. Steeler Nation, I want to hear from you. How much confidence do you have in this defense bouncing back over the next 2 weeks before Highsmith is back in the lineup? Do you think Tomlin made the right call punting on 4th down, or did he go against his own philosophy and cost the team momentum? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them all. And once again, if you enjoyed this breakdown and want to keep supporting Steeler coverage like this, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The road ahead is tough, but the Steelers are tougher. Let's see how this team responds. Steeler Nation, what's your prediction? Will Pittsburgh be 3-1 heading into the bye week, or are we in for more struggles before Highsmith makes his return? Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be here every step of the way.